We have a wonderful parable this morning, and Jesus did his very best to make my job easier because he explained what the parable meant. Unfortunately, the parable is all about plants and growing things from the earth, and I am terrible when it comes to growing plants. So my analogies might be a bit off, but from what I understand of the way plants work and the definitions of things, that a weed is technically any plant that is unwanted in a given area. So this means that if you are growing corn and a rose grows in your cornfield, in that instance the rose is a weed. That's going to become important later on, so hold on to that image of a rose being a weed. We have this parable of the good seed that's sown into the ground, and we know that we are the good seed, we're the children of the kingdom, and there was bad seed, and those are enemies of the kingdom. And Jesus has said that the weeds and the wheat will grow together, because if we uproot the weeds, some of the wheat will be uprooted as well. Weeds are a problem because they take nutrients from the soil that's meant for the plants that we want to grow. Sometimes they overshadow the plants and they don't get enough sunlight. And if there are too many weeds, they can choke out the plants that we want to grow. So we want to be careful when it comes to weeds. Well, if that's the case, why would Jesus say to let the weeds continue to grow? Is it simply that Jesus would rather not lose even one person to uprooting weeds and lose one grain of wheat, and that's why he doesn't want to do it? Or is there something deeper? I think the message for us is that we shouldn't be worried about who is a weed and who is wheat. We live in very divided times right now, and there are all these distinctions that separate us one from another. And so there's some of us who are wheat and some of us who are weeds. Some of us who are right and some who are wrong. Some who have one political party over another. Some who have some leanings over another. Some people have different statures or different genders or different sexual orientations or whatever things that are there. We have all these things that separate us into these little groups. And there's us and there's them. We hear about it all the time. There's always some other group. Whether it's us deciding that there's some group out there that they're not quite Christian enough, and we don't want these people who are misinterpreting our faith representing us, to the people who are saying that we're the ones who are misrepresenting the faith, to the people who are saying, well, their skin tone is not the right shade, or their height's not appropriate, or their gender is not appropriate, or that person has hair and that person doesn't, or whatever it is. We hear about all the time how people are being singled out and set apart. But it's not what we're called to do. We're called simply to be who we are. Bearers of the light of Christ. We're just called to be the wheat. It's not our job to identify who the weeds are. It's not our job to say, look over there, that one, that's a weed, I can clearly tell. That's not for us to do. It's not our job to pull up the weeds. It's not our job to decide who's wheat. Remember that analogy of the rose in the cornfield? Even the things that can seem most beautiful to us are not necessarily of the kingdom of God. It's not for us to decide who's weed or who's wheat, simply to be who we are called to be, simply to be a people that shine the light of Christ in a world full of darkness. Now, I don't want you to use this as an excuse to say, well, Father Christopher said that I should just mind my own business and be me, and if that person's doing injustice over there, I should just let it happen. That's not what I'm saying. We should always stand against injustice. We should always stand against oppression. We should always stand for unity. Because at the heart of it all, God created all of us, every single person on the face of this planet, to be a child of the kingdom. So imagine a world. Imagine this, where we assume from the very beginning that we're all on the same side. That there is no earthly enemy that is against us. What if every single person you've ever met and ever will meet is a fellow child of the loving Creator? And what if we all treated each other like that was true? That's what the kingdom of heaven is like. That's what Jesus is saying in the parable this morning. Don't worry about whether or not someone is against you, because if they're really against you, God will take care of it in God's own time. Let's just be a full head of wheat. Let's just be bearers of the light of Christ and shine so brightly that it's almost impossible to look upon. That's my prayer for you today. In this week, in this month, and always. That we can forget about whatever silly things we've come up with to separate ourselves. And only worry about being children of our loving Creator. People who are loved so much that we can't help but pour out that love for others. Just because they exist. Let's be that shining field of wheat. And let God deal with the weeds in God's own time. Amen.
It's time for Sings, Screams, and Giggles. Two flies are on the porch. Which one is the actor? The one on the screen.
Why are spiders good at baseball?
Why?
Because they catch flies.
Why do bees have sticky hair?
Why?
Because they have honeycombs. What do trees wear at the beach? What? Swim trunks.
Why can't you iron a four-leafed clover?
Why?
Because you don't want to press your luck.